Hey, you don't even take care of her properly, you old hag. Get out. From today, we'll be living here. We'll take care of the $1,700 living expenses. Lindsay was smirking as if everything was going according to her plan. To her words, Zach, who had been silent until now, replied with a refreshing smile. Oh, then, I'll leave it to you. The living expenses are $7,000. What? $7,000? Lindsay seemed confused. She didn't understand how the amount jumped from $1,700 to $7,000. Zach, with a mocking smile, said, Look, here's the breakdown. Check it out for yourself, and showed them a detailed statement. Upon seeing the statement, Lindsay and her group were pale. Well then, please take care of everything. We're leaving the house. And so, we, the couple, left the house, leaving Lindsay and the others behind. I am Brittany, 37 years old. It's been 13 years since I married Zach. We both work and currently live in a house near our workplace. However, my parents were still living in a rental apartment. That apartment was where my sister Lindsay and I spent our childhood, filled with many memories. Eventually, the apartment we grew up in was to be demolished in 6 months due to aging. My parents were forced to move out and were looking for a new place. That's when Zach made a suggestion. Brittany's parents, isn't it tough looking for a place to move? We have a spare room, so why don't your father and mother live with us if they don't mind? I was truly grateful for this suggestion. My parents were already over 70, and I was worried if we could rush over to help them in case anything happened. Zach was the second son, and his parents were living with his elder brother and his family. Perhaps that's why he was positive about living with my parents. After Zach's suggestion, I discussed it with my parents. They were very happy and agreed to live with us. I was filled with gratitude towards Zach's kindness. When the specifics of the move were being discussed, my parents came to consult about the moving process. You know, I was thinking of asking Lindsay and her family to help with the move. Is that okay? According to my mother, when she talked about the cohabitation with Lindsay, she said, Sam and I will help. Initially, my parents felt guilty and declined, but Lindsay convinced them. Hearing this, I had mixed feelings. Lindsay and her family lived in an apartment about 15 minutes by train from my house. This would be their first visit since I bought a detached house. I had told Lindsay about buying a house but hadn't shared the details. Lindsay and her family didn't have financial flexibility, and I didn't want to be bothered with their comments about our lifestyle. It all started 5 years ago. One day, I suddenly received a call from Lindsay. Lindsay, hey, I have something to tell you. I'm getting married. Congratulations. So, who's the guy? His name is Sam. He's super cool and a carpenter. He wants me to be a housewife. I could almost see Lindsay's beaming smile through the phone. Back then, Lindsay and I still had a good relationship as sisters. But gradually, Lindsay changed and began to consult us about money. Sis, sorry, but I need to borrow $500. Sam's work gets affected by rain, and we're short on living expenses this month. I'll pay it back with the next salary. Please help. This became a monthly occurrence. Initially, I lent her money out of concern, but lately, I've been refusing. That's because Lindsay never repays the borrowed money. When I refused last time, Lindsay lashed out. What's wrong with you, stingy? It's just $500, right? You work at a big company, so you can afford it, can't you? Not helping your own sister who's in trouble. You're heartless. Considering this, I was worried that Lindsay might ask for money when she visits my house. My house is quite large, so she might think I still have more money to lend. I was anxiously awaiting the day my parents would move in. Finally, that Sunday arrived, the day of my parents' move. I was nervously waiting for my parents and Lindsay's family. Zach had to work unexpectedly on his day off, so he wasn't home. I had to handle everything alone. When I was waiting, the doorbell rang. Sis, open up quickly. The luggage is heavy. Well, your house is bigger than I thought. You must be rich. I'm jealous. Lindsay was standing there holding my mother's suitcase. Sam, with a somewhat mocking smile, said, Hurry up, sister. Don't just stand there, let us in. Sam was holding a small chest of drawers, shouting as he seemed to struggle with it. Oh, sorry, come on in. I had to guide Lindsay and her family inside the house. Is this the room for your parents? It's better than our apartment. Lindsay muttered in a low voice as she entered the room that would become my parents' bedroom. Is this really okay? It's spacious. I feel bad, my mother asked us with a sense of guilt. My father also looked around the room, as if wanting to say something. This room hasn't been used. It's like a spare room, so don't hesitate. I responded in a way so that my parents wouldn't feel uneasy. Originally, this room was intended to be a nursery. However, both Zach and I were busy with work, and in these 13 years we never seriously considered having children. So, we thought of letting my parents use the spare room. If that was the case, you should have told me, I would have used it. Sis, you're still stingy, aren't you? Lindsay made such a snide remark and began organizing our parents' belongings. As a result, the moving process for our parents took about 2 hours. The reason was that my parents had disposed of most of their belongings for the move. They sold all their appliances to a handyman service, and the money they got was given to Lindsay and her family as a thank you for their help. They had given away or discarded unnecessary clothes and small items. Even after my parents moved in, their room still felt spacious with all their belongings in it. Thank you, Lindsay and Sam, for all your help. My mother thanked the two of them. Then Lindsay nodded to my mother's words and spoke to me. Hey sis, can I still come here sometimes? Our childhood home where we grew up is gone now that mom and dad have moved out. This has become my place to return to, and I want to keep seeing mom and dad. Indeed, the apartment where my parents lived was already cancelled and soon to be demolished. If Lindsay wants to see our mother, there's no reason to refuse. That's fine. Just keep in mind, I'm usually busy with work. So, if you visit, I can't really entertain you. Don't worry about it. I'm totally fine. Thanks, sis. Lindsay thanked me with a happy smile. After that, Lindsay started visiting our house about once a week. For some reason, Sam also came along. It seemed Sam visited even on weekdays when he would supposedly have work. Oh, Sam came to visit again. My mother would report with a smile. Since Lindsay and her family started visiting frequently, there has been one problem in our house. Oh, again. I just restocked these the other day. Every time I checked the fridge or shelves, I noticed that food and daily supplies were diminishing. Initially, it was just vegetables or toilet paper running low. But recently, expensive ham from Zach's boss and cosmetics I bought from a department store started disappearing. At first, I thought my mother was using my stuff and asked her, but she only said, I use my own. I see, but the amount decreasing isn't normal. It's troubling. Lately, even expensive items are disappearing. While I was complaining, my father said, don't be too angry. I'll keep an eye on it too. Right? It's affecting our household finances if it continues. Be careful in the future. I relayed this to my parents. I also sent an email to Lindsay about this, but she didn't reply. Despite my caution, our belongings continued to disappear, increasing my stress. 3 months later, I reached my limit. Once again, mine and Zach's personal items were vanishing. Incredibly, a branded wallet I gave Zach for his birthday had disappeared. The culprits could only be Lindsay or Sam. This was clearly theft. Recently, even on weekdays when we were not home, Lindsay seemed to be hanging around our house, using up the groceries we restocked, leaving nothing for the next day. We couldn't even keep a stock of groceries anymore. So, Zach and I decided to take a day off from work, even though it was a weekday. The reason was to persuade Lindsay not to visit our house anymore. The day arrived. Zach and I pretended to go to work as usual and left the house. We waited near the house for Lindsay to show up. After about an hour, Lindsay and Sam arrived. Sam's supposed to be working, right? Zach whispered to me, but I couldn't answer as I didn't know. 5 minutes after they entered the house, we returned. I'm back. When I greeted them at the entrance, Lindsay came out in a fluster. What are you doing here, sis? It's a weekday. What about work? Huh, Zach too? Lindsay was unusually flustered. Yes, I wanted to talk to Lindsay, so I took the day off, I said firmly. Then Sam, along with my parents, gathered at the entrance, looking surprised. I looked at Sam and said, oh, perfect, Sam is here too. Saves me the trouble. Listen, Lindsay and Sam, please don't come to our house anymore. I wanted to talk to you about that, I said in a calm tone. Then, Lindsay suddenly got angry. What are you saying? I've been keeping mom and dad company while you're away during the day. Well, that's nice. But you can talk at a nearby cafe, right? Mom and dad aren't unable to walk. They can go there easily. I responded without warmth. Going to a cafe costs money. I don't have any. Lindsay snapped back at me, visibly irritated. I sighed heavily. I see. So that's why so many things are missing from my house. You're stealing them, aren't you? I feel like calling the police. Zach supported my statement. You know, Brittany gave me a wallet for my birthday. It's missing. I haven't used it yet and was planning to switch from my old wallet this weekend. Do you have it? I'd like it back right now. Zach said this while extending his hand towards Lindsay and Sam. Sam's reaction was visibly disturbed. What the hell? You're suspecting us, your family? It was clear that Sam had stolen Zach's wallet. Frustrated, I bluntly told Lindsay and the others. Just leave already. Swear you'll never come to this house again. Then I'll pretend this never happened. After that, I'll cut ties with Lindsay and her group. Go on, get out. Kid bye. Stealing from family. I never want to deal with such people again. There's no proof of the things that have gone missing so far, and it has cost us a lot, but I'm prepared to let it go. However, it seemed Lindsay and her group didn't understand. Are you kidding me? You won't be able to see mom and dad anymore, you heartless person. Lindsay, overlooking her own actions, snapped back at me. So, we offered Lindsay and her group another solution. All right, if that's the case, why doesn't Lindsay live with mom and dad? You can be their companion every day. Lucky you. But remember, living here would cost at least $1,700 a month for living expenses. I thought Lindsay and her group wouldn't be able to pay such an amount. However, perhaps ready to take up the fight, Lindsay retorted. Hey, you don't even take care of your own parents properly, you old hag. Get out. From today, we'll live together. We'll take care of the $1,700 living expenses. Lindsay smirked as if everything was going according to her plan. Zach, who had been silent until now, replied with a refreshing smile. Oh, then, I'll leave it to you. The living expenses are $7,000. What? $7,000? Lindsay and Sam seemed confused. They didn't understand how the amount jumped from $1,700 to $7,000. Zach continued with a mocking smile. Look, here's the breakdown. Check it out for yourself. He showed them a detailed statement with the breakdown. We then began to gather our valuables. Lindsay and her group were pale after seeing the statement. Well then, please take care of everything. We're leaving. And so, we, the couple, left the house, leaving them behind. Arriving at a hotel, we collapsed on the bed immediately. We both had been on edge in that situation, making a bold stand. I'm really tired. Sorry for causing trouble for you too, Zach. Thank you. It was still before noon, but I felt so tired I wanted to sleep right away. Dealing with my unreasonable mother and Lindsay is incredibly hard. Their attitude had really irritated me. Brittany must be more worn out, right? Lindsay is quite unreasonable, but your mother-in-law is on a whole different level. My mother probably turned a blind eye to Lindsay and her group consuming our things and committing theft. She didn't intervene in the argument between us sisters and pretended not to know anything. She probably thinks neither she nor Lindsay did anything wrong. In her eyes, there might not even be a concept of theft within a family. Probably, my mother thinks Lindsay is more pitiable or lovable. That's why she can tolerate Lindsay's selfishness. Well, I've always been focused on my studies and never really depended on or pampered by my mom. Since I was young, I've been focused on getting into a good university. I managed to get into my first choice university and land a job at a major corporation, forging my own path. In contrast, Lindsay never studied much and spent her time chatting with mom or engrossed in her favorite activities and fun. Consequently, she only got into a mediocre university and failed in her job hunt. Lindsay was hired as a contract worker, not a regular employee. For my mother, affection was more important than intelligence. She always prioritized Lindsay, and the difference in birthday presents for me and Lindsay was stark. So, it's like we've been kicked out of our own house. What should we do now? Zach asked me casually while lying on his back on the bed. He probably thought it difficult to take strong measures since Lindsay and mother are my family. But for me, Considering everything so far, Lindsay and Mother are the last people I can forgive. We don't need to hold back. We'll get back at them properly. I answered calmly. Zach quietly nodded in response. Having my life trampled like this, I couldn't just stand by silently. So, I decided to cut ties not only with Lindsay but also with my mother. In the afternoon, we headed to a nearby law firm. A few days later, we went to our house with a lawyer. Lindsay came to the door when we rang the bell. Hello, oh, it's you, sis. What do you want? I need to discuss something about this house. Can everyone gather in the living room? I requested Lindsay. Ick, why do I have to do it? It's so annoying. Is this really necessary? Lindsay responded, seeming to stall and looking annoyed. Hurry up. If you don't, we'll be here indefinitely. Also, we have a lawyer with us for the discussion. I glared at Lindsay. Okay, I got it. Lindsay, shaken by the mention of a lawyer, quickly gathered Sam and our parents in the living room. The living room was a mess, with empty snack bags scattered everywhere. When we lived there, it was always tidy, but now it seemed no one was maintaining it. What exactly do you want to discuss? I don't have anything to say. Lindsay said grumpily. Yeah, what's up, sister? You came to take back the house. That's impossible, we're living here now. Sam spoke with a smile. Then my mother joined the conversation. Brittany, you've already left this house with Zach, right? If possible, I want to live with Lindsay and her group. They listen to me more sympathetically and it's fun. Sorry, but being with you, Brittany, just makes me tired because I have to be on guard. My mother looked at me with a rueful smile. Realizing my own mother thought this way about me was a bit of a shock. What was the meaning of all the time we spent together in this house? It felt like a hole had opened in my heart, and my feelings for my mother completely vanished at that moment. Got it. We have no problem leaving this house. Yeah, this detached house might be too big for us. Zach agreed with my words. If that's the case, Lindsay's attitude switched instantly from her previous snide remarks to a smile. Sam and the parents also looked satisfied. However, after seeing them happy, I presented a condition that would drop them into despair. But there's one condition. Lindsay and her group have to buy this house. As I said this, Lindsay's face turned sour. You mean the living expenses statement you gave us before leaving? A monthly mortgage of $5,300. Are you joking? Lindsay retorted, almost in outrage. But that amount was the market rate. This house is in a prime location near downtown, just 5 minutes from the station, and has 3 bedrooms. The reason why the monthly loan is $5,300 is due to calculations made to keep the total repayment amount low. We opted for a short contract period to reduce interest, even though it was a stretch. Well, it doesn't matter what Lindsay thinks. Since the ownership of this house is in our joint names, if you want to live here, you have no choice but to buy it. So, please go ahead, lawyer? I urged the lawyer to proceed with the sale process. The lawyer nodded, saying, "Leave it to me," and then began, "Now, we'll proceed with the sales contract. First, please review the contract details and amounts, then sign it." When the documents were passed to Lindsay and her group, they turned pale upon reading them. At $1.5 million, isn't this a rip-off? Lindsay's voice trembled. The sale price, estimated from the remaining loan, was not a rip-off. In fact, considering the land value, I thought it was quite a reasonable asking price. As the lawyer's explanation progressed, Lindsay and Sam's expressions grew increasingly pale. Impossible, impossible. We can't pay that. Lindsay began to shake. The parents looked as if they might faint. They were probably shocked by how high the price of the house was. Oh, you can't pay? Then why are you still here? I thought you were willing to buy this house, which is why I came today. Can't you sign the documents quickly? Lindsay and her family can just take out a loan and pay it back like I did. I asked Lindsay coolly. Then Lindsay, trembling, replied in a small voice, "Sorry, really. I just thought since my sister lives in such a nice place, I could take it over. I never really thought about buying it." And apologized to us. Sorry about that. I can't earn that kind of money even if I work nonstop. It's too expensive. We can't pay. Should we live with Brittany and Zach again? The food is better there after all. Mother appealed to father. Father didn't say anything. just seemed troubled. Oh, sorry, that's not an option. We're not living together anymore. I've been betrayed once, and I'm planning to cut ties with mom and dad. We won't be involved with them anymore. I declared this to my parents. Never again would I be involved with Lindsay and our parents. Then my mother screamed. Cut ties? What do you mean? What about the allowance we were getting? Father started to look disturbed. What allowance? Lindsay suddenly stood up from her chair and confronted mother. Lindsay probably didn't know, but actually, besides the $1,700 for living expenses, I was giving mom and dad money every month. It was about $2,000 per month before we lived together. Now it's a lot less than that. Seriously? Then the $7,000 for living expenses we talked about before isn't enough at all. How could you and Zach afford to pay so much? Lindsay asked in amazement. Sam was too shocked to react. We work at a major corporation, right? So we get a decent salary every month, plus bonuses. It would be impossible for me alone, but with Zach's help, we managed. I explained to Lindsay calmly. Lindsay seemed shocked by the huge difference in our incomes. She seemed to give up fighting with me and collapsed on the floor. So, as I said earlier, from now on, we won't be involved with Lindsay and mom at all. So, Lindsay, you'll be supporting them properly from now on. I responded to Lindsay with a full smile. Lindsay and the parents' faces turned even paler. After that, the discussion about selling the house to Lindsay ended. As expected, Lindsay and the parents didn't have the money. Instead, Lindsay, Sam, and the parents had to leave our house. Thanks to the lawyer, they left without any issues. Lindsay and the group were saying, we thought we could live freely in a big house, but I no longer listened to them. Oh, right, Lindsay, you haven't vacated your apartment yet, have you? Then, I'll send all of mom and dad's belongings to your place. I said this and immediately arranged for a handyman to move them. All the parents' belongings were delivered to Lindsay's apartment. It's a small apartment, so I don't know if everything will fit. But that's no longer my concern. I told the handyman to charge all the moving expenses to Lindsay. Considering it as compensation for the trouble they caused me and Zach, it's quite a bargain. Still, from time to time, Lindsay contacts me. Sis, I'm really sorry. Can't you live with mom and dad again? They're wasting money, and $1,700 isn't enough for living expenses. They're spending their pensions on entertainment. Sam is really angry. Can't you do something? She appealed desperately. Apparently, my parents are now staying in Lindsay's apartment, living off them. Living with 4 people in a small apartment must be hard. My parents have a habit of squandering money. Even when they lived with us, they would spend their pensions despite receiving an allowance from us. Mother loves branded goods, and father can't quit alcohol and gambling. So, I somewhat expected them to strain Lindsay's finances with their spending. What are you talking about? You said you'd live with mom and dad, right? I don't know anything about it now. I've already cut ties. It's not my concern anymore. But I'm grateful to Lindsay. I don't have to give mom and dad an allowance anymore, and our life has become much easier. I was frank with Lindsay. It's not fair, you know, right? I've always been poor, and now it's even harder. Sam is even talking about divorcing me because of this situation, and I'm being forced to work. Saying this, she started crying on the phone. Lindsay, who was always so selfish and competitive, had become so weak. She must be really desperate. Serves her right. Then why don't you work? I'm not involved anymore. Good luck. I said this and hung up the phone. Then, my mother also contacted me asking to reconsider living together. Brittany, I'm really sorry. The thing is, Lindsay's apartment is too cramped to live in. The food is meager, and nothing decent comes out of it. I miss the food you used to make. I'm sorry, but can we come back? I'll pack up right away. To such a selfish request from my mother, I firmly pushed her away. Didn't you say you wanted to be with Lindsay? It's none of my business now. I won't help you anymore. We're strangers now. Today, we're actually busy preparing crab sukiyaki. I'm going to hang up now. Oh, I remember you liked crab sukiyaki, right? Too bad, we'll enjoy it on your behalf. After saying what I needed to, I hung up the phone. My mother, who loved crab, must be regretting it now. 3 years have passed since then. Zach and I are still living in this house. Occasionally, Lindsay and my mother would come to our house, and I even had to call the police, but now it's peaceful. Later, both Lindsay and my mother divorced. Sam and father realized they could have a more comfortable life by distancing themselves from Lindsay and my mother. Lindsay, being a housewife with no income or career, seems to be struggling with job hunting. My mother, having been a housewife all her life, has almost no pension income. Having such burdens around, it's tough to make ends meet. Sam and father chose to divorce to escape from Lindsay and my mother. However, even after divorce, their lives don't seem to have gotten any easier. Sam, after divorcing Lindsay, is trying to return to his previous carpentry work, but it's not going well as he had been slacking off for a long time. He is being treated coldly by other workers. With no experience other than carpentry, it's difficult for Sam to switch to another job. He will continue to struggle to make a living. Father, after divorcing my mother, can't find a new apartment and is moving from one relative's house to another. However, he is not welcomed and is resented everywhere. For my 73-year-old father, it's tough to find new rental housing. He will probably continue to be unwelcome among relatives for the rest of his life. My mother's divorce was caused by her spending habits. Lindsay, foolishly, had an affair. I found out about these circumstances because Lindsay and my mother suddenly came over and were shouting about the reasons for their divorces. Mom, the income is too low for just the two of us, and we can't keep up with the rent. Please, can we come into your house? When Lindsay started talking, my mother also seemed desperate. She was shouting, "Help me. Let me in at least. I'm your mother. And, you know, that thing, crab. Mom, what do you mean help you and not me?" Then, Lindsay and my mother started a huge fight, so I called the police. I felt these two would never change their ways. The police intervention stopped Lindsay and my mother's unexpected visits. I'm really glad about that. And then a significant change came into my life. I became pregnant. Surprisingly, I found out I was pregnant. My belly is quite big now, and walking is a struggle. I'm taking leave from work for childbirth and childcare and plan to return when the child turns 1. I was really worried about how things would turn out, but now we have to be strong, for the child's sake. Zach declared enthusiastically. Yes, let's work together as a family of 3. I said this, looking into Zach's eyes and smiling. Although my connection with Lindsay and my parents is severed, I have Zach and our child. I truly want to cherish not just blood relations but the family right in front of me.